Andrew Robb, welcome to breakfast.
Thanks very much, Fran. Good
Andrew
morning.
Robb, this is your portfolio area. Will you be recommending this scheme to your party room when you meet today?
I'll be very strongly recommending that we take huge account of this scheme.
Is that the same thing as we should adopt it?
Well, we received it last week. I think it has the content and the features that will deliver a far, far better scheme than the government has got on the table. And, you know, it's a pathetic government response that we've had overnight. I do think that the knee-jerk dismissal of this scheme by the government has greatly undermined the credibility of the government on this issue. You know, we spent months raising problems, legitimate problems about this scheme, which the government then labelled us as deniers and sceptics and dismissed us out of hand. Now that we've undertaken the research, which the government repeatedly refused to do, which shows that a scheme can be twice as green, 40% cheaper, and save 70,000 jobs in regional Australia, you would think that the government would at least sit down and discuss the proposal. It's a 100-page, very highly considered proposal. It was developed on the same model, the same modelling that the Treasury used to develop their scheme, so it's comparing apples with apples. And the government has just, in a knee-jerk way, dismissed this proposal. And I do think, you know, that it just demonstrates clearly that the government is playing politics with this issue, a very important issue, and you know, they will pay a political price for that.
Well, the Minister Penny Wong said on this program this morning that it's all very well to say you've got a different scheme, but it's still not party policy. There's still no amendments. There's still no agreement in your party room. Quite clearly, the Nationals, Senator Barnaby Joyce and Fiona Nash already have said they won't support any ETS scheme, full stop, this one included. Let's hear Climate Change Minister Penny Wong this morning.
It is not possible to have a negotiation and a discussion where the opposition have yet to formulate a position. Would I talk, for example, to Senator Joyce about his ideas? Would I talk to Wilson Tuckey about his ideas? Would I talk to Tony Abbott or Mr Turnbull or Mr Robb, who have all apparently put forward somewhat different views?
It's a fair point, isn't it? What is your policy?
You know, well,
With 2 days out from the vote.
The fair point in all of this, Fran, is that we have been asking for literally months and months and months for this work to be done so that we could have an informed debate. At our own expense, we have commissioned this research. It is a very robust and exciting piece of work. It builds on all of the experience around the world and has taken, you know, there's a whole new dimension, a new design dimension in this scheme, which needs to be considered. We have said that until we're properly informed, then Australia should not move forward. And that includes what's happening with the United States. This modelling that we've done has been informed by what's developed in the States in the last 3 months. If we'd taken a decision in June when the government wanted to ram this thing through, you know, where would we be as a country? We would not have the benefit of a scheme which is 40% cheap. 40%, that's $50 billion cheaper, saving tens of thousands of jobs, and is twice as green.
But Andrew, Robb, with respect, you talk about this new design dimension that's so exciting. This notion of a baseline scheme for electricity generators is not absolutely new, and if it's so much better, why is no one else in the world using this design?
No, this is the furphy. This is the furphy. You know, again, the minister overnight just said, well, this has been tried and failed. That's not correct. What has been looked at before is a baseline and credit across a whole economy. We looked at that too, as did Frontier, and dismissed it. But the unique thing about this is that you use a baseline with still a cap. This is an emissions trading scheme. This is a cap and trade scheme that's on the table. This is not a baseline and credit. Without getting into the technical details, it is being misrepresented. It's a very simple process. It's a new design breakthrough in the sense of using that feature of a baseline scheme just for the electricity sector. And when you do that, you massively reduce the tax on electricity. You stop indirect cost to small businesses like a dairy farm with $8,000 to $10,000 indirect cost that would come from the government scheme. Under this scheme, $1,000 to $2,000. Dramatic difference. So you don't put a leg rope on growth across the economy. That's where you get this benefiting lower cost and higher jobs, but still having the money to do even a better job on emissions.
Couldn't it be argued too, you don't have a price signal, so people get more motivated to use less electricity? Isn't that the whole point?
No, but again, you see, this is the government's spin on this issue.
Well, I actually thought that one up myself.
No, well, the issue is, with this scheme that Frontier have put on the table, you get exactly the same price of carbon as you would with the government's CPRS scheme. Exactly the same price. So the incentive for the big emitters to reduce CO2, the incentive per tonne of CO2 is identical to the government scheme, but you've got a scheme which is not at the same time imposing a huge tax on lots of industries who can do nothing. The smaller industries, small business, small mid-tier manufacturers who will cop a really big increase in tax on their electricity without little ability in the short term to do anything about it. And that, you see, sitting behind this is the government is trying to defend their scheme because it involves a massive intake of revenue for the government, tens of billions of dollars. They want to protect this gold mine of revenue, new revenue, equivalent to a 2.5% increase in the GST. There is a cheaper way of doing this. We're still getting exactly the same price signal and still getting, exactly the same response, and in fact rewarding those who do a better job of reducing emissions. That's part of the scheme.
Okay. Well,
there is enormous benefit out of this, and I'll just say to you, at the very least, the government should, you would think, for all the moralising and lecturing that we've had for 2 years now, you'd think if there was an opportunity to get a scheme which allows greater cuts in emissions at less cost, you think they would at least sit down and have a discussion. I challenge the Minister and the head of the department, Martin Parkinson, to sit down and debate and discuss this and be briefed thoroughly by Danny Price so that people can make a judgment about the merits of this scheme. It is too important an issue to play politics.
Let's be clear on this then. If the government proposed your scheme on Thursday, a vote on this frontier economic scheme, the coalition would support it? Yes or no?
No, friend, this is too important an issue just to rush these things through. This is what we've been saying. There is no imperative that a decision be taken this week, last week, in June. The rest of the world is doing lots of things, and there's a lot that we can be informed about at Copenhagen and the United States. We've said that the government needed to consider this research. This research has now been produced. We should all, the coalition and the government, thoroughly examine this. What we're saying is that the work clearly demonstrates that there are alternative designs to a cap and trade scheme which can deliver demonstrably better outcomes for the environment, but at a cheaper cost and saving tens of thousands of jobs in the regions. This is the sort of advice we said should be considered. None of us should gallop to something on Thursday. We should absorb this and try and see if we can make what is a deeply flawed government scheme something that is workable and will actually do something about emissions in this country.